Today I'm going to teach you how to make sure that every NPC in your world has a voice. This video is sponsored by Dungeon Alchemists, now on Kickstarter. More on them later. Greetings gamers, I'm Anto and my hair is a level 17 paladin, and today I'm going to show you a really easy way to give every NPC in your world a character voice. This isn't some super in-depth tutorial on how to manipulate your vocal folds to produce different sounds, no. Instead, we're going over some really basic stuff just to make sure every NPC in your world can have their own voice. Having distinct voices for your characters that are different to your regular voice goes a long way to helping the players connect with the NPCs and view them as distinct characters. It also helps to pull the players into the game, and in my experience, it's a great way to foster more role-playing. So today I want to give you my 5 tips for giving every NPC in your world a voice. My first tip is to not be afraid of stereotypes, at least not at first. Stereotypes might be overused, but they convey a lot of information without you having to explicitly lay things out for your players. Now, a dwarf with a Scottish accent is nothing new, but the stereotype immediately cements the character in your players' heads as a dwarf, which is really useful for making a memorable character that is distinct from the other NPCs you've created. You want to use the players' preconceived notions against them, and playing into stereotypes is a quick and effective way to do this. If I want an NPC to come across as arrogant and unlikable, a drawling posh English accent is kind of the perfect way to do this.
Well, that is why you have come, is it not?
You can then play into those expectations that come with a stereotype voice, or you can subvert them. Think of a huge towering half-orc with a deep gravelly voice who's actually a pacifist and loves bunnies. My next tip is a world building tip, and that's to assign real world accents to different places or people groups in your world. Like our previous example, a dwarf might speak in a Scottish accent, and every dwarf your players meet would have a different voice, but all with a Scottish accent. But you might find that your halflings have an Aussie accent, you know, because they're rambunctious little firecrackers that fit the Aussie accent perfectly. Doing this for a while is going to give your players an immediate reference when they meet any NPC. They'll start to know things about an NPC that you never have to describe just by the sound of their voice. Now, there are legitimate concerns here that doing this will create a new stereotype in your player's mind, and it can cause people groups to kind of become homogenized in the minds of the players, but you have all of your other descriptive and world building tools at your disposal to make sure a halfling is more than just a short Australian person. All this is doing is giving you a baseline to create a reference point to get your players to recognize the voice you're doing belongs to a different character and not to you, the Dungeon Master. If you describe a hooded, shadowy figure ambiguously and then start talking in a Scottish accent, the players will immediately assume dwarf. But then you can turn that against them, and perhaps the hooded figure is a gnome who's good with voices and wants to throw people off about their true identity. Now there, before we get to the very best tip of the bunch in my opinion, I want to encourage you to subscribe if you're enjoying this content. My goal for 2021 is to hit 25,000 subscribers, which would be amazing. But to get there, I need your help. So if you enjoy these videos, please leave a like below to feed the algorithm and consider subscribing. It doesn't cost you anything and it really helps me out. And while you're down there, check out my Patreon too. It's filled with all kinds of resources and tools for Dungeon Masters, and you can find a link to a free sample pack in the description. Now, back to the video. Tip number 3 is, I think, the easiest way to introduce a wide variety of voices into your game really easily, and that's just draw on existing characters in pop culture. I know one problem I have when it comes to NPC voices is kind of remembering the nuance of the voice. I might know that a certain dwarf is a Scottish accent, but is it low and aggressive? Or is it soft and high? One way that you can really easily track what voice an NPC has is by referencing another character or another person's voice. For example, you might have a small town barkeeper who's softly spoken with a non-threatening voice. In this case, Uncle Bryn's South Welsh accent from Gavin and Stacey is a great option. And what I would do is, while writing the entry for my character, I just mark Uncle Bryn in the voice box. Sit down and try and think of as many characters in fiction who have a distinct voice that you can kind of do a halfway decent impersonation of. The goal here isn't to play those characters or even really to impersonate them properly, it's just to give you a strong jumping off point to kind of kickstart your muscle memory and get the NPC's voice without having to warm up. My next tip is to modulate your NPC voices in simple ways to get a variety of results. A modulation is anything that changes the way you do a voice. So whether they are softly spoken or really aggressive, whether they have a lisp or whether they roll their R's, All these things can change how you perform a voice and give each NPC a unique sound. In my last campaign, for example, I had an Oracle NPC who spoke with a stutter. I didn't give him any accent, it was just my voice, but he had a stutter, and that immediately separated him from the other NPCs and gave the players that connection point to know when it was him speaking. Now eventually I worked that stutter into the NPC's backstory and the players learned the cause of the stutter, but the point was he already existed as a distinct character in the players' minds by the time we got to that point. Now closely related to this is kind of your body performance. Even if you're not playing in person, acting out the mannerisms of an NPC or physically changing the way you hold yourself can create a huge variation in the sound of your voice. Curling in on yourself for a scared character, or puffing up your chest and raising your chin for a proud character. All these things can impact the sound of your voice and how you play a particular NPC. In my last campaign, I had a character who was defined by always having a cigar. So when I had to deliver their lines, I took a marker pen like this and I just stuck it in my mouth and it gave them a distinct character voice. My last tip for you today is a practical one on how to keep track of what voice your NPCs have. When you've been playing a campaign for a few months and return to voice a character you've not done in a while, it can be really easy to lose the nuance of their voice if you haven't practiced it. And if you don't note down what their voice is, you're probably going to forget the voice altogether. The way I do this is with a voice section in my NPC notes. Here I use short and succinct language to remind myself how an NPC would talk. For Konos the dwarf, I might mark down Scottish accent with lisp. Doing this means that when I come back to voice Konos, I know exactly how he sounds. Or for Rwanza, the human noblewoman, I might write down Hermione rolls R's. This tells me she speaks with a posh English accent and rolls her R's. Writing Hermione instead of posh English allows me to slip into that voice much quicker than I would have been able to otherwise. If you've watched this channel for a little while now, you know how much I love maps, and I'm always on the lookout for new ways to speed up my map making process. That's why today I'm really pleased that this video is sponsored by Dungeon Alchemist. Dungeon Alchemist is a new map making program that uses AI generation to take care of all of the pesky parts about map making. You select a theme, draw your rooms, and then the program generates themed content to go into those rooms. You can still go back in and tweak individual objects and fuss around with the room until it's perfect, but having your space automatically fill with themed items is going to make creating maps so much easier. Not only that, but as part of the already unlocked stretch goals, Dungeon Alchemist will eventually include a big red generate button, allowing you to make a whole dungeon with one click. The maps can be viewed in 3D, or you can get a top-down orthographic view or perspective view, and these can be exported as images to load into your virtual tabletop of choice. You can even select from common page size layouts and print your maps. All the stretch goals for the project are already unlocked, including new themes, objects, options, and the program is going to be available on Steam when it launches. Dungeon Alchemist is a one-time purchase program, and the project is running until March the 11th. You can find a link to the Kickstarter page in the description below, and thanks again to Dungeon Alchemist for sponsoring the video and helping to support the channel. So there we have it, my 5 quick tips for giving all of your NPCs voices. If you have any tips of your own, share them down in the comments. And if you want to keep watching, I have a whole playlist on making campaign worlds just over there. You can click it. But until next time, help gaming! Oh my god, that's ridiculous. Okay, we're done.